Welcome to the Brilliant Fertility Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Katie Rose, and this podcast exists to help illuminate the path ahead of you. With expert interviews, clinical pearls, and real client success stories, my intention is to bring you hope for what's possible on this journey and to give you tools and resources to navigate the ups and downs on the road before you. If you find this podcast helpful, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite listening platform. And I have a big request. If you have a minute, can you leave us a 5-star review? And let us know, what did you learn? What did you come away with? Did you leave with that spark of hope? This helps more people like you find the podcast. My mission is to support as many humans as possible on their path to become parent. And by you sharing and subscribing, you're part of that mission too. And I'm so grateful for you for being here. Welcome to the Brilliant Fertility Podcast. Now, today's episode is a little bit of life lessons and almost like a Dear Diary kind of episode. But there were so many parallels that I was able to witness from this experience that we recently had with my dog needing an emergency vet visit and requiring hospitalization. And as I was talking to one of my friends about it, she was like, oh my gosh, I feel like we all need these lessons. And I wish I had thought about those on my fertility journey, which, for her was a decade ago. So if you follow me on social media, you probably saw that last week was an adventurous one for our family. On Sunday, we'd have this amazing day trip to a local lake where my kids got to have their first kayaking experience. It was so lovely. And then Monday morning, in the 30 minutes it takes for me to drop the kids off at school and come back home, our dog got into this bag that had a bunch of stuff from our day trip that included a pack of xylitol gum. And if you didn't already know, xylitol is extremely toxic for dogs. I had that knowledge tucked back in my brain from a toxicology class probably 15 years ago. So when I got home and I noticed she was acting kind of strange and I found evidence of vomiting and saw this shredded wrapper, I just immediately hightailed it with her to the emergency vet. So first off, a public service announcement. If you have cats or dogs and you have any products with xylitol as an ingredient, it's often listed as birch sugar. It's a naturally occurring sugar in birch, and it's often used as an artificial sweetener. It's not actually artificial, it is a naturally derived product, but it's used as a sugar alternative, essentially. So a lot of products that are labeled low sugar or keto might have xylitol in them. And it's just not even worth having it in the house. So throw that away now. Let's save you all the drama that we went through. But I know a lot of you at this point are probably like, what does this have to do with fertility? And just stick with me. I promise you we will get there. And it's going to be a good episode, even if my brain is still a little in recovery mode from not getting a whole lot of sleep last week. But I know that a lot of you are pet owners and love your pets even more than you might love some humans. If that's the case, we'd probably be friends. For me, with the exception of the first year and a half that I was in college, I've always had pets. I'm an only child, so pets were essentially my siblings growing up, and they've been such a meaningful part of my life. They have enriched my life so fully that I would do anything for my pets. And so last week when our dog Piper got into this xylitol and I hightailed it to the vet, I will say like that is the most activated my nervous system has been in a long time. I was able to safely get us to the vet, but when they started asking me simple questions like how to spell my name and what my phone number was, I found myself stumbling over the answer, barely able to form sentences, as I found myself kind of reeling in what the worst case scenario could be here. And I bet you are also really good at thinking of worst case scenarios. So many of our brains are wired really, really well for looking for threats and playing out those worst case scenarios so that we can plan for it and hopefully avoid it. But still, like we're planning that. We're putting energy and imagination into it. So even though this evolved to keep us alive, it's not actually helpful in most scenarios. So if the goal with a lot of these scenarios is to stay calm and grounded and be able to respond in the moment versus having your brain completely shut off, like mine was for a moment there, it's not very helpful, right, to have that. So we want to be able to stay grounded, stay in the moment, stay present, and to remember that we actually do have the power to imagine the best case scenario. So this is lesson number one, is putting intention and energy on imagining the best case scenario, because when your imagination is running wild and it's playing out, like what are all the bad possibilities here? That's going to put us in fight or flight mode. That redirects our blood flow, that changes the neurotransmitters that are being pumped into the bloodstream, and that has a physiological change, and you can feel it in your body, right? Your heart starts racing, your mind starts racing, maybe your gut clenches up, your mouth goes dry. I mean, there's all of these physical symptoms that go along with being in fight or flight mode, so you can generally feel when that's happening. And when I experience this with my clients, and even when I experienced it myself, it might happen when you get that negative pregnancy test. And this has happened, months in a row, and your brain starts to spiral into the, what if it's never going to happen for me? What if this is every month for the rest of forever? What if my body can't do this? And also in scenarios during pregnancy, when maybe there are symptoms or there's signs like bleeding that send us into that worst case scenario fear. I certainly don't want to give people the impression that bad things never happen, that the worst case scenarios never play out. But what I want to give you some pause with is the fact that oftentimes there is nothing wrong, or it's just bad timing, or our body just is trying to communicate something else. And there's so much opportunity to pause and redirect our attention to the best case scenario. So in my case with my dog, like I was starting to go down that path of like, am I going to have to tell my kids today that our dog died from eating gum in this bag that we had? And that's when I started to kind of lose it in the waiting room at the ER. And I had to stop myself and like, okay, Katie, what would you tell one of your patients who woke up in the middle of the night bleeding when they're 8 weeks pregnant? When we don't have all the information yet, we don't actually know what is happening. What are we going to imagine? We're going to stop. We're going to breathe. We're going to feel our feet on the ground. We're going to feel our butt in our seat or wherever that is. We're going to ask for help. Number one, we're going to say, who can I reach out to in this moment? Who can support me? And we're going to start imagining what is the best case scenario here. So we're going to imagine that when we get in for that early ultrasound, that we see a beautiful, strong heartbeat on the screen. We're going to zoom out into 9 months in the future. We're going to imagine that healthy baby here, alive, kicking, crying, being held. We're going to put our energy there, even though we don't know the answer yet, because it's going to help us stay grounded. And God forbid, if something different happens and we need to use different tools for processing a different situation, we will cross that bridge when we come to it. But right here, right now, we're going to imagine the best case scenario. So I started imagining that we are home with our dog. We are playing. She is breathing her stinky breath in my face, looking happy, smiling like golden retrievers do. And it's all okay. And we learned a lot. When I started imagining that, I could physically feel things starting to shift in my body. I could physically start to speak again because literally I was at a loss for words. And I kid you not, when they asked me to spell my name, I was like, spell my name? I don't even know what the fuck is my name right now. How does anyone get through this, especially when they don't have these tools and resources? And I witnessed a lot of people come in and out of that emergency room over the next 2 days because we were hospitalized. My dog was hospitalized, and for the most part, I stayed with her for those 2 days. And I witnessed a lot of people come in and out. And it's a very interesting, like open concept emergency vet where you see everything. And from the provider's perspective, it's great because they can keep an eye on all of their patients. From the dog parent or cat parent side of things, it can be a little overwhelming because they might have 10 different cases there, all experiencing different things and being different levels of symptomatic, and their owners being different levels of emotional. So it's a very interesting observation of humans handling crisis. And I would say most people coming in were somewhere in between a state of shock to a state of just pure distress and sobbing uncontrollably. So I got to see firsthand how that human condition and our tools and resources can play out. And so when I started using my tools, and especially imagining the best case scenario, it really helped me to get through those next couple of days. Lesson number 2. Sometimes there is just nothing to do but to stop in your tracks and be, and accept a situation for what it is. And for me, being like mid launch mode, the Brilliant Fertility Program was supposed to open doors the day that this happened. I had so many things planned, from podcast interviews with other colleagues to discovery calls with people who were interested in joining the program, a whole host of to-do lists. And it was clear none of that was going to be happening. And there were still parts of me that were really distressed about that and disappointed. And I had to pause and witness and honor those, and also look at what is my priority here. My priority is my family, and my dog is part of our family. She's a very important part of our family. And I just knew that this is where I needed to be, and that was going to have to be okay. And anyone who is meant to be in my world and, be my friend and be in my programs, they're all going to understand. I have to trust that. And the people who aren't, it's okay. Maybe we're not each other's people, and that's okay too. So this is maybe multiple learnings here, right? Because there's a boundary that I had to set that says, you know what, this is my priority today. And realistically for the next few days. And it's going to take some catching up from that too, because if I'm rescheduling clients and I'm prioritizing people who have already paid to reserve my time and my attention, then they're getting first priority in what gets rescheduled versus the podcast interviews, the launch interviews. And that's going to have to be okay. So there's choice in that, right? I could continue to spin my wheels, feel terrible and guilty, and feel bad about myself for having to reschedule all of these things. Or I could be the person who says, you know what? Life's, and we're going to figure this out. And no matter what, I want to look back on this moment and be proud of who I was in this moment for my family. So just learning how to be versus what to do, right? This is such a theme for health, wellness, fertility, true healing, in that we're always kind of scurrying around wondering, like, all right, what else do I need to do? What else do I need to do? Like, how can I do it better? How can I do it more perfectly? What else can I add to the list? And the doing and doing and doing can get exhausting. It can add to the overwhelm. And it can often be a byproduct of parts of us that are unhealed, parts of us that are actually asking us to slow down and be witnessed and just be. So I'm not 100% sure where this quote came from. I think it may have been Jim Fortin, who is most well known for helping people rewire their subconscious in the business world. But there's a quote that says, the being is only as good. No, pause, scratch that. The doing is only as good as the being doing the doing. So how you are showing up, how you are being in the acts you are doing matters. I felt like that was a riddle. That was like something straight out of Willy Wonka that my brain is still like, hold on, did we get that right? But the gist of it is like how we are showing up and doing something matters more than what we are doing, right? So when it comes to fertility, the endless checking off things on a list, taking supplements, having, the perfectly refined diet and getting enough protein and meditating every day, it all seems like it would be good in theory, right? But the person that we are being behind that is what's going to make the biggest difference. So if you are someone who doesn't actually believe that you are worthy of getting pregnant, if you don't actually believe that the supplements are going to do anything, but you're taking them because someone on this blog post said these would be good for people with low AMH, then our ability to actually receive that information and have our body do anything with it is limited. So when we can learn to slow down, accept a situation, accept who we are right now, and decide, who do I want to be in this moment? If I fast forward a year from now and I look back on this, what would I be really proud of in myself and who I became in that moment? And that's practice. That is not something that has come perfectly naturally for me or for a lot of my clients. And yet it is one of the most impactful things that I have learned over the last, 10 years or so of doctoring, mothering, having my own fertility journey, and working with extremely complex situations that require a lot of unwinding to get to the root. The third lesson in this, and I've already alluded to it a little bit in my first couple, is just to fully receive. And in this scenario, with being at this emergency vet and then, being in their hospitalized area, I noticed how well they cared for their patients and their patients' human parents. So this vet was was a pricey situation. I think all pet hospitalizations probably are really, really expensive, and they took really, really good care of us. There was no guarantee of what the outcome was going to be. And yet, in feeling very cared for, I just felt like this is just a no-brainer for me. Like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to help our dog in this moment. And I know a lot of you will do whatever it takes to bring your child into this world. But it reminded me a lot of the IVF journey because there's no guarantee of what that outcome is going to be either. And it's also really expensive, right? You invest thousands upon thousands of dollars with no absolute certainty of what the outcome is going to be. And if you're at a clinic where it just feels like a factory, where you just feel like a number and they're churning people out left and right, that feels really shitty. But if you're at a clinic where the provider is really listening to you, really wants to work with you to create your plan of care, really wants to understand what your experience has been and how you need to feel cared for, that brings in this element of safety, and being able to receive that care is so different energetically than when you're just like, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, with these experiences and still shelling out a lot of money. So I noticed what it felt like to really receive that care and to feel endlessly grateful for it, despite not being totally sure what the outcome was going to be for those first 24 hours. And to reflect on, my own healthcare experiences. It's been a while since I've had to, be the patient. And, it's been about 6 years, I want to say. I don't know if I've shared this in previous episodes, but I had a very large cyst on my ovary at the beginning of my second pregnancy, and it was causing a lot of pain. It was early enough in the pregnancy that I didn't know for sure what was going on. And I was kind of worried at one point that this could actually be ectopic because over the course of the day, the pain was getting more and more and more intense. So I did have to pause and use all my tools even then of imagining like, okay, if I get in somewhere and we're able to do this early ultrasound, like I am imagining a healthy looking pregnancy inside the uterus. I'm imagining a healthy baby getting here 9.5 to 10 months from now. I was really struggling to do that in that moment. I was less practiced with these tools. So I would kind of flip flop back and forth throughout my meetings earlier in the day where I do believe now, looking back, hindsight's always 2020, right? That when I was in that very heightened state of anxiety about what may or may not be happening, I think the pain was actually getting worse and worse and worse because what was very interesting is once I got in for the early ultrasound and knew what it was like I could finally take a deep breath and relax, and the pain calmed down. Now, it was still some uncertainty because I was told at that time that if the cyst ruptured, I would likely lose the pregnancy. And of course, that was not a scenario that any of us wanted. And both my husband and I were pretty freaked out. So, we both just prayed over this pregnancy and imagined the best case scenario. And I had to really call forward a level of faith that I had not been required to call forward in a long time, to imagine that best case scenario and practice who I wanted to be in that moment, knowing I had an almost 3-year-old son already who also needed me. in that moment and needed me to be a present parent. And I was really struggling to be that in that moment. And I really struggled to receive the care that I was getting because it required me to actually ask for help, which hyper independent people might have a hard time doing, and to also receive help from other people as I realized I need to slow down a little bit for these next few weeks to really give my body everything that it needs to keep this pregnancy going. So, lots of life lessons from this emergency vet experience. And I hope that none of you ever have to go through any emergencies whatsoever. But if you do, and when lives, I hope that these lessons also support you in being in the moment so that you can stay grounded and respond instead of running around like a chicken with your head cut off, and to slow down and receive the help that you are so deserving of, and to know that you're worthy of the investment too, because health is an investment. It's often a very hard investment to make in yourself. Like, why is it so easy to imagine investing in your pet or your business or your child, but not yourself, even if it makes all the other areas of life improve? I think we're all unwinding these, and maybe these questions have already begun to wake something up within you and view these scenarios with a different lens. I think that's all I have to say on this for today, but I do want to let you know that because of this experience and just giving myself the past week to unwind from this and process the emotions that popped up throughout, I'm just giving myself a lot of grace. And in doing so, extending how long we're leaving the retreat replays up from the virtual fertility retreat, and the Brilliant Fertility Program enrollment phase is extended just so that we can have this just deeply nourishing couple of weeks that everyone is worthy of. So, if you have anything coming up in your life that you're feeling uncertain about, I hope you can put your energy, your intention on what the best case scenario would look like and feel like, and slow down and fully receive all that care that you are worthy of. And if you are looking for fertility support and my message aligns with what you feel you need in your world, don't ever hesitate to reach out to me. I love hearing from our listeners. I've found it kind of funny that the people who have been in the background listening to the podcast for months and reach out have ended up being the absolute most amazing people to work with. And we actually just had a positive pregnancy test in one of our Brilliant Fertility Program members this week, who has been listening to the podcast for a long time before she joined the program. And I was still kind of coming off this, all of the emotions from last week when she sent her text over on Saturday, and I just put my mascara on and I saw the little notification pop up, and I answer questions in our Brilliant Fertility Program WhatsApp group most days of the week. So, here I am prepared to answer a question, and I see the text that I just got my first BFP ever. And oh man, did I just have to stop and ugly cry for a few minutes, because it's such a good reminder that shit doesn't have to be perfect. And all of these tools and resources that I'm teaching you guys here today, like, we amplify these in the group, and here I am crying all over again, just like thinking about it. And still very much in my feels. But yeah, I hope that just gives you a sense of what's possible, and that people who have been in your seat listening to this podcast are getting their positive pregnancy tests. And so if that feels like something that you're hoping for in the future, know that it's possible for you and you're in the right place. All right, before I go off on, too much more rambling, I'm going to wrap this up here because I can see my emotions just coming out, and it's probably time for me to do some breath work and some targeted tapping and shaking, and I'm really still being in this fully. But I'm sending you so much love, I'm sending you so much possibility, and if you are struggling to have hope today, please allow me to carry that hope for you. Until next time.